Alright. This has been a long time coming. I haven't streamed in like days. And it feels like years, honestly. I feel like my sense of time is completely gone. And that means that I haven't played Zelda in forever. The few VOD viewers that there are, or the many actually. Also, I don't know why. Everyone really likes the Pathetic Fish short. It's got like 1,000 views. And I don't know why you guys like it so much. I just call a fish pathetic. Like it's literally written inside the game. But yeah, sorry to any VOD viewers. Oh god, that was a voice crack. I haven't had enough water yet. But and sorry to live viewers as well. We've been very busy. A lot of things happened. A lot of good things. So just been taking a break and just hang out. New stuff on the main channel as always. Check it out. I also got some time to catch up on my other hobbies, like things not playing games and editing videos. I've been slowly making small, fun little game for the stream and stuff. They're very small. It's eventually gonna come out. The problem is that I don't know how to program an Unreal Engine. And I'm starting to realize just like I forgot how complicated it was to use the engine, because the engine like has a lot of moving pieces in it. You know, it's like there's a lot of things going on in it. So it's difficult for me to sort of understand everything that's going on, because you have to have a deep understanding of a lot of concepts all at once, which I have none of. For instance, I was trying to make things move, and I don't remember anything about physics. But to make things move within the physics system, you have to know stuff like, oh, what is mass? What is force? What is velocity? How do those interact with each other? What does it mean to sort of keep pushing velocity in one direction? And then doing the math to churn vectors, which is just collections of 3 different values, like an x, y, and a z. And then converting that to quaternions to like a rotational value to like rotate the original force to like push in a different angle, and how that relates to like the XYZ. That's been a very difficult process of learning. But it's been going fun. It's been interesting to get back into like my weird hobbies. It's very strange hobbies. I typically don't do that kind of stuff, or like I rarely talk about that kind of stuff, because like, you know, who really wants to know about programming stuff? But I find it interesting. I also got to catch up on a lot of my webtoons. There's one really good webtoon, which I'm planning to make like a larger video about, because I think it deserves like a bit of a spotlight. It's really good. It's called on webtoon it's called Real Man. No, on webtoon it's called A Man's Man. I don't know why they translate it like this, but translated more literally, it's like real man. It's I feel like anybody who's listening to this is gonna be like, "What are you saying? Why are you just saying the same thing over and over?" But honestly, it's really good. It's actually really good. It's about a guy who gets isekai'd. Obviously, okay. Again, you have to get isekai'd. There's never been a point in time where you don't get isekai'd. I think if you don't get isekai'd, there's something wrong, right? If you survive in a in like a anime manga world and you don't get isekai to some different timeline or place, then you're not the main character. You're just an NPC who's going to like pass away. But this one's a bit interesting. Usually isekais, they take the concept of you get pushed towards like a alternate universe where your powers are like an abstract concept that is made real, right? This one's different. This one instead takes your powers as your soft skills, because the guy who gets isekai'd was the CEO of like effectively what is Samsung. It's like the in-universe version of Samsung, but you know, you can't say Samsung, right? Like it's like the whole you can't stream Final Fantasy without praising Sony thing, which was going around like a while ago. Like they have rules about this stuff. You just can't. But yeah, it's basically the in-universe Samsung, and for him, he made a lot of bad decisions that one day killed his friend. Oh my god, I just made 20. I just wasted so much silver. God damn it. I wasted so much silver. I didn't know. That, oh my god. Okay, well, looks like we're mining silver for the next couple days. Cool. Cool stuff. Very cool. Okay, well, back to mining silver, I guess. It goes all the way silver. What about gold? Is our gold okay? Yeah, gold's fine. Well, I wasted 100,000 silver on 20 dragon plate bodies. But I did sell it for like 10 million, so I guess it's okay. But yeah. The what was I saying? Oh yeah. The whole point of it is that he is a CEO who made a lot of weird bad business decisions that ultimately ended up killing his like friends, right? They pretty much died. Or one of his like colleagues, his like close friends, when he started the company, killed himself. When he laid out the entire department. It's like this is all in the intro, so there's no spoilers. Like the only spoiler is like if you don't read it. Okay? Then he gets isekai to the back and it's like a whole thing. Really good stuff. Like it's very interesting to sort of see like how they take the concepts of business and apply it to this fantasy world and apply this fantasy concept to the idea of like business. Because usually, business stuff can tend to be very, very boring. Think of any show out there. It's usually a very, very boring kind of affair, basically. Oh, wait. One coal ore per ore mined? Wait, what the? That skill cap is amazing. Wait, hold. Wait a minute. Why am I missing a cape? I never had a cape on. Yeah, really good stuff. Yeah, I think it deserves like a fuller video because it actually touches on a lot of interesting concepts that you kind of see still today that a lot of people don't really realize happens still. Like for instance, did you know that big conglomerate companies in South Korea, because they're so heavily tied to the government, they effectively are like governmental entities. So it recently happened actually. The daughter of the CEO, I think of Samsung actually. It was actually like Samsung, which is pretty funny. They got on an airplane and they got mad because they didn't receive the right amount of like peanuts or something. And like it's when you hear that you're like, what the hell is this? But she fired them, and then she got like huge shit for it. But that's like an everyday occurrence there, It's like you just can't escape it. It's very strange. I've also had like friends that like came from there who have like worked in that place, who have like worked in those companies and have like gotten pretty high up, and they've been like, yeah, like at some point you work and you answer to the hierarchy. You don't actually work and answer to like the concerns of like what's like necessarily good, but to kind of like appease someone's ego, which you get here, but here if you do it too much, the business fails, right? So there's a bit of a stopgap. At least that's the intention. Unless you're so rich like Apple that you can keep trying things and you just never fail. But there's a whole discussion about that. Aside from that, I also read an interesting article this morning about bugs in software and how people tend to forget what it means to, I guess, treat software as a craft and treat software engineering as a craft. This is a weird topic to talk about as we hear frogs in the background. It's very strange. But I figured it'd be more fun than just a plain waiting room, The basic waiting room. I figured having the frogs would be more fun this time. And the idea behind it was like, a lot of people tend to forget that the little things that you make and the little things that you sort of create can have an impact on someone's life, even in ways that you don't really expect. And the examples given were actually very interesting because usually the examples given are from, high impact industries. Think of logistics, think of medical, think of aviation. I've worked in medical, I've worked in logistics. I haven't worked in aviation, thank God. I've heard it's absolutely painful. But I've worked in like very high impact industries before, and like the sentiment is true. The idea of like you really have to be wary and careful of the things that you do because any bug will impact someone's life in a potentially negative way is always a looming concern. So one thing that they mentioned was this like imagine like Home Depot. I think Home Depot is like a near global thing. Apparently they have it in the States. Home Depot, United States. Do they have it in the States? I don't know. Do you guys have Home Depot in the States? Like this? Wait, okay. Where does Home Depot exist? It's sited in Atlanta, Georgia. Really? What? Wow. Who knew? Huh. That's crazy. I didn't know that. That's actually nuts. Huh. Well, okay, so that explains why. But they're also like in like a lot of different places. And they were talking about how they tried to order something from the store, but they couldn't. And then like a conflict happened with the delivery driver, where on their system they see one thing, but the customer ordered another thing. And you may notice this has similarities to something you may have experienced during the pandemic, when dealing with stuff like Uber and stuff like that, or other delivery services, where you'll order one thing and something else comes completely differently, right? It was interesting to see how that impacted someone's life in like an actual scenario. They were talking about how it impacted their like timeline for things, how they couldn't get things done on the right time, but also how it caused them a lot of undue stress. And it's like they were already in a stressful moment, having to do like a bunch of things, like how am I gonna get the stuff upstairs? Like I'm one single person, like I can't do it. I need help, right? And if they do it, they're just gonna break their back, because it's like it's not safe to like carry all that stuff upstairs. And it's interesting to see, because it seems inconsequential. I think anybody could look at that and be like, oh, any developer who's working on this stuff could just look at that and be like, oh, this is a very inconsequential thing. Like, they may be working on it and be like, it's just the Home Depot app. Like, really, what's the problem, right? And we never really think about the consequences of the things that we build until somebody comes to our face and says, hey, F you, why did you do it like this, right? And then they like tell you how it impacted their like lives. And this can extend to like anything we like make, whether it's a specific product or it's a specific sort of process that we develop. Like, it doesn't have to be software as well. It can be anything, right? Anything that we produce for someone else. A common example that I also hear of that's sort of not essential but has a high impact when it does go wrong is like food. If you get food handling wrong, people get sick, and some people can like die. Like, like there's a reason we ask for your allergies. Like, you can die, right? And it's interesting to me how a lot of people don't really notice that aspect of what they do, right? And it's interesting to me how a lot of the times we don't actually get the ability to be able to work on those aspects and take care of those tiny little important details, simply because we're not given the resources to be able to do so. So a lot of the time when you see these issues happen, you get somebody who's like either disinterested or something, but there's usually a deeper reason to it, right? Like, are they getting paid enough? Are they, is it too much work for too little time? Because I'm going to be honest, you can't work someone for like 10, 12 hours and expect the same performance. Like, at some point, performance suffers, right? And so it's like, you see a lot of businesses make these decisions that are counterintuitive to how you would think they should run a business. And this ties into another thing that I was reading about. These like Japanese snacks called dagashi or something. And it's like this like business owner who like specifically opened like a giant sort of warehouse store for it in this small town. Now it attracts like hundreds of like thousands of visitors. But it's like their idea was like, oh, do it for the sake of the business, and profit is kind of like a secondary incidental goal, right? The idea being like, if you can make something good, the money will flow. Money is not necessarily the goal. It's like the side effect of doing something good. It's like, if you do something good enough, people will pay you for it. You can charge like any amounts and people will pay you for it because it's good. Profit and stuff then becomes sort of like a happy little accident that then fuels you to go further. But the truth is, you should probably be focusing on the product and what that means for like a good product being like, problem free, and something that people want, something that's actually good. Good being like a vague term, but it depends on what you're going to like make. In software terms, it means there's no bugs, solves the problem, has a good experience, a good user experience, and it doesn't absolutely blow up in your face when things go wrong, basically. And it's interesting to see those articles because it's a long-term idea and a long-term observation that I've made about the industry. A lot of places I'm gonna be honest, and it's gonna freak you out. Do not care. They do not care, even if it's like a very, very high impact industry. The only industry where this isn't true is aviation software, and even then, in aviation software, we get a lot of cases where it doesn't go right, like the Boeing 747 Max issues. When that came out, oh man, that was a mess. And like the airplane crash and stuff, I think that they had one airplane crash and like people died for it. Like it's crazy to me. Um, and we're starting to trend towards that more and more and more, right? I have a feeling we're gonna see more and more and more of those issues as we get deeper and deeper and deeper into the life cycle of like software in general. Because software in general is a very new field, right? When I was a kid, it was young, like very very young. Like when I was a kid, everyone was just doing it like Wild West cowboy style. Like I learned on forums from people who were doing it to like make like mods for like games, right? Completely Wild West cowboy style. And it's like still now it's young. It's only like 40 to 60 years old. Like only now am I starting to see my previous coworkers start to retire, and they started late in their life. Like they started programming late in their life at like 30 or 40, right? So we haven't even seen the generation of like people who started when they were like 12 retire, you know? Like we're not gonna see that for the next like 50, 60 years. And so it's gonna be very interesting to see how that plays out as more and more software gets integrated into our lives. It's gonna be slightly terrifying. Like I talked about this last time too. There's a hotline for I think eating disorders in the States. It's one of the more famous and well-known ones. They recently fired all of their support staff for an AI, and even now, regular people will see that that's a terrible idea because you can't replace a person with like a technology and get the same result. But I would take that one step further and say you can't replace a person with a technology because there's no guarantee the technology is going to work. Like there will always be some catastrophic issue, either due to business constraints where you can't focus on the issues and you're forced to keep pushing forward, that will cause someone to die, or it's just something that people just aren't skilled enough to find, which is a sad reality of like not everybody should be doing the job, not everybody can do the job, and most people can't find these issues, and so you're going to like it's very dangerous, very very dangerous. As an anecdote, well, not an anecdote, but like a very real sort of, I guess, look and understanding at like what bug prioritization looks like. You can find a lot of online documents about this, a lot. So you can go to there's a couple places. GitLab posts their entire process online. Amazon posts their process online. Google posts their process online. You tag bugs by their priority, but the priority is shifted based on business constraints. So even if a bug is going to absolutely demolish your application in a very rare edge case, and it's like, sure, 99.99% of the users are fine, but with 0.01% of users get such a bad experience that they basically either give up on your product entirely or their lives get like irreparably ruined, right? If it doesn't happen often enough, or it's not severe enough that it affects like a huge important portion of the business, it gets bumped down to like basically a P7, which is basically like you don't ever work on it until you have nothing left to do. In a weird paradoxical way, you never have nothing to do. You always have something to do in a business. Google is infamous for this, actually. And it's funny that I brought up Google specifically because they post their metric online. It's what a lot of companies follow. But a lot of companies don't realize, and a lot of business leaders and sort of tech team leaders don't realize this. It's why when I was sort of pushing for that stuff, I was very cognizant to tell my team members, like, hey, look, like, we have this rubric, but we have to treat it like we're the business. Like, we have to look at the consequences on the people and not just business constraints. Like, you can always work around business constraints to a relative degree. And so it's better to just say, like, what is this? Like, focus on the severity of it. But at Google, there's been so many stories of people who lose their entire business accounts. Like, a business Google account to just randomness. Like the one day they'll just come on and it's like, oh, their account gets deleted, it's gone. They lose their entire business overnight. You know, they're a solo person. They have no other alternatives. You know, they basically have to start from scratch again. And it's like for some people, it's fine for them to start from scratch. Like they have a moat, they have a way of doing it. They're probably aware of it. But how many people have that happened? Has it happened to that has sort of taken it to its most extreme consequences, right? It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of surprise. It's an unwelcome surprise. It's a very painful thing to go through to see your business basically dissolve overnight because of something that you can't control. And Google's infamous for this as well. You can't get in touch with a person. You always get in touch with a machine. Like their support, they have no support staff. They literally have none. They've been downsizing for so long on their support staff. It is absurd. So imagine this like happens to you and you just can't do anything. You have no recourse. Most people will walk away fine. Some people will just take their lives or something because it's like, oh, you know, my business is gone. I'm not gonna go through that like all of that again. Why would I even try? It's over for me. You know. And I think people need to, you know, be aware of this stuff. Be very aware that this stuff can happen. Very, very aware. And you should always sort of have a moat when it comes to technology of like, don't rely on technology to do your business. At some point, unfortunately, you will have to because it's like, oh, you can't take global orders. Like, you just can't take, like, if you're in the States, you can't take an order from someone in like Southeast Asia unless you actually have a piece of technology that like allows you to bridge that physical gap, right? But at least having something for your local business will at least keep you afloat if anything goes wrong. And if anybody's in software and you're listening to this, dude, like you gotta be careful, especially if you're like a newer dev. It's gonna feel very abstract. Like, oh, I'm just working on a website for this place. Like, what does it really matter? But if you're working on a website for like Walmart, for instance, right? You could seriously impact people's lives, right? In a way that you don't really expect. Most people don't have time to go grocery shopping. It's very tough and very stressful. A lot of people have to deal with stuff like, oh, like how much they pay and stuff, and a lot of people have the median of the entire population. It's like 95%, 90% or something doesn't have enough money to pay for, you know, basic necessities, right? So if you ever have an issue where like the pricing is slightly off, or you have an issue where you can't check out online and you force them to sort of go there and have to do it all in person slowly, right? You force them to make other sort of knock-on decisions. Sorry, you force them to make other decisions that have knock-on impact, knock-on effects on everything else. Whereas they may have saved time being able to order online, they now can't, and so they have to come in and they have to waste time doing it in store. But they may have had to take time off work, which may have forced them to eventually be let go, right? Like you can never really predict it. So if anybody is in software and you're listening to this, be very careful about how you build the work, about how you build the stuff that you work on. It's very important, very, very important. I stress it a lot. Anyways, that was a lot of pre-stream stuff. I actually meant to stop sooner, but like, the topic is so interesting to me. It's one of the most interesting topics out there for me. Of like, how do you build and how do you ingrain into people the importance of things actually working, right? It's a very difficult topic to approach because you have so many different factors to look at. You know, like you can't inspire someone to do something. The truth is, business is business. If you don't pay them enough, they won't do it, right? Even if you give them responsibilities on paper, it's a business transaction. It's a contract. If you don't pay them enough, they won't do it. And even if you pay them a lot, though, you still run the situations where you can pay someone like $1 million a day, and they still won't be able to do the right thing or the best thing possible, simply because some people can't do it. And so it's a very sort of interesting problem to take a look at in terms of business. It's almost like it's an intractable problem. You're trying to figure out the best way to sort of get someone to do something without necessarily intruding on certain things. Like, oh, like you don't want to underpay them. You don't want to. I think overpaying them is kind of fine, but you have to be careful of like, what does that mean for the health of your business? Like, as a knock-on effect, you overpay one person, that means you have 3 months less of runtime for your business, right? Like, sure, you can overpay one person like quite a bit, But it means that you either have to work 3 times as hard to stay alive, or you have to accept the fact that you're gonna close in 3 months sooner. That's it, right? Very fascinating problem. Anyways, that's enough of that. We're off to play Zelda.